This is Inspiring Design, where unique innovators come together to share their knowledge, share their insight, and keep us up to date with the latest industry trends. And here's your host, Roshan Senanayake.
What's up, listeners? It's Roshan here. Welcome to a brand new episode of Inspiring Design. Today marks the 23rd episode and is exclusively sponsored by Central Innovation. Central Innovation sources, builds, and advises on world-class design process solutions to the manufacturing, architecture, engineering, and the construction industries. These guys are the main supporters behind the products that we use, such as ArchiCAD, including the enhancements, BlueBeam, Rhino, Grasshopper, Atlantis, SolidWorks, just to name a few. So anyway, let's talk tech. Today's topic is all about Central Innovation and BIM. It's one of the fastest growing technologies across the globe, with 12D modeling playing a huge role in almost every single major infrastructure project and construction. Australia is obviously no stranger to this, and Central Innovation's BIM software packages fit right into this world. If you're a student in secondary or tertiary, these are obviously the products that will be utilized in every day, so understanding their capabilities and training is essential to anyone's skills portfolio. What about the teachers? Well, if the students need it, then it's a given that our educators of today also need to understand these products back to front. Today, I've got with me a very special guest. I've got the product manager of Australia and New Zealand at Central Innovations, Michael Warr. I love that name. Michael has a background in architecture and has been with Central Innovation for more than 5 years. He's responsible for developing training courses for BIM, visualization, and he's a product expert in ArchiCAD, BlueBeam, Rhino, Grasshopper, and Atlantis, again, just to name a few. Michael, welcome to Inspiring Design. Thank you for giving up your time.
No worries, pleasure to be here.
Can we start off with a little bit of background and history on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I joined Central Innovation in 2015, and prior to that, I was working as an architect and project leader on some really interesting projects here in Perth. Mm-hmm. The opportunity came up to work on pretty much the bleeding edge of BIM software and design processes. So when that came up, it was just too good to pass up. I've been really fortunate in my career to now work with some of the most knowledgeable BIM experts in the world. Yeah. And Central Innovation has encouraged me to learn and develop my skills.
Great.
It's just been a dream. Like, I wake up and pinch myself sometimes because I have this incredible job that sends me all over the world.
Definitely.
And I get to share knowledge which helps people design better buildings as a result.
Perfect. And obviously this is with using a lot of the Graphisoft products. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about who Central Innovation is. Because there are a few terminologies. In your expertise, who is Central Innovation?
Yeah. Do you mind if we start with who Graphisoft is?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's the one I'm more familiar with.
Yeah, I think for the most part, your listeners will be more familiar with Graphisoft, but we hope to also bring CI into the picture with some of the things that we do to help people who use Graphisoft products. So Graphisoft is actually a Hungarian-based software company. Mm-hmm. It was founded in the early 1980s. I think 1984 was when they released the first version of ArchiCAD, and it was actually the software that pioneered this whole BIM movement.
Wow.
Almost, more than 30 years ago.
Yeah, they're definitely thinking ahead of the time.
Yeah, there's a few rumors as to why it came up. Some people believe it was to do plumbing. Some people believe it was for a nuclear power plant. Wow. I actually don't know the true story behind that. There's a book that you can get called The Graphisoft Story, which I think would actually outline all that. But there's something interesting about the mystery there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And since then, Graphisoft has actually grown to become a global brand, and ArchiCAD, which is a software you're probably familiar with, its flagship software continues to lead the way in design-oriented BIM authoring. we're seeing global growth in licenses as companies who are really design focused make the switch to BIM authoring. And we are also seeing companies who are design focused move to ArchiCAD from other platforms just because of its capabilities. So globally, ArchiCAD is either the number 1 or number 2 BIM software.
It's a direct competitor with Revit, I guess, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a competition that we we love to play in. And don't get me wrong, both softwares are great. And each software has features that we want in the other one.
Of course.
In terms of ArchiCAD, I think of ArchiCAD as a bit of a design tool, and I think that's something that actually separates ArchiCAD from the competition. In practice, that means that the features of ArchiCAD are flexible enough to let the architect design freely without worrying too much about the details early on. And so as we go through the design stages, we progressively develop the design from concept to construction, adding more information at each stage. And some other BIM authoring tools out there, they have this process backwards. So you have to specify every piece of information at the time you place an element. Yeah. And in a way, I think this kind of hinders this design experience. When you get going and you just lose track of time and you get really stuck into this design process. If you have to keep popping out because you need to Google some information, then that can break that flow. And I guess in that sense, this is probably one of the prime differentiators between a BIM documentation tool and a design tool. So we're starting to capture the market by demonstrating what we call non-destructive, smarter and more efficient workflows using just one piece of software, which is centered around this concept of design. This is particularly advantageous for time-poor architects and students. Of course. Students are always time-poor. And people with design briefs that require rapid iterative testing. And I think, students definitely get something like that because they're always submitting, week in, week out studio projects and getting crits, and they have to make massive changes.
100%. And at the same time, they're trying to find their own design style and discovering themselves almost at the same time. So definitely.
So we find that students, they need a tool which allows them flexibility to quickly make changes and come back to the teacher with a realized design. But don't get me wrong, I'm talking about ArchiCAD as a design tool. It has also all the features required for documenting any type of building. And we can collaborate with other disciplines through open BIM workflows, which Graphisoft is a great proponent of and contributes widely to the open BIM community. Open BIM is becoming a bit of a buzzword on the market. I think everyone's kind of throwing it about.
Definitely,
And not many people who I talk to actually know what it means. I'm sure your listeners are quite interested in this concept. And for me, the process of open BIM or the workflow, it's just about using any software and not being limited by a vendor, which in translation means each discipline can use the tool of their choice and share work through an open and vendor independent file type called IFC. So open BIM is kind of like the Android platform of the BIM world, where Apple might be the closed BIM solution. And hands up if you've been frustrated with your Apple phone because you can't get if this then that on your Apple iPhone. I think we've all been there. And so the idea is that we share these 3D models using IFC and then combine them in our own software just to check for issues. And Graphisoft has put some serious development time behind IFC so that we as users can reap the rewards that this concept offers. As a result, ArchiCAD users can freely work with other market-leading software. And ArchiCAD 23, this year's upcoming version, has just taken out Architosh's Best of Show Award in the BIM category at this year's AIA National Convention in Las Vegas.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's the second year in a row that they've done it.
Yeah, wow.
And BIMX, Graphisoft's mobile BIM presentation and coordination app.
I've used that.
It's good fun, isn't it?
It is, actually.
If you shake it, your model turns into a piano and you can start to play it. Did you know about that?
I actually didn't.
So Graphisoft, ArchiCAD is known for throwing in little Easter eggs like this. The Kernel bought Tetris.
Yeah.
You can get a Rubik's Cube by using the cube object and making a few settings. So there's all these little Easter eggs in there.
I got to check that out.
I'm still looking for the one in 23.
Right.
And in the UK, ArchiCAD has been voted the BIM product of the year 8 years in a row now.
Wow.
So
that's impressive.
Yeah, it's no wonder that some of the biggest architecture firms in Australia and New Zealand actually use ArchiCAD to produce striking and beautiful architecture through open BIM workflows.
Yep.
So that's the background behind Graphisoft. I actually work for Central Innovation, which is the local partner and regional representative for Graphisoft products in Australia and New Zealand. And my role is product manager. So like most of my colleagues, I actually have a background in architecture and design and a very big interest in BIM and technology. And I've always been that software geek that gets software before everyone else and tries it out, just to kind of cut my teeth on something that's new and fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Central Innovation is known for selling and supporting both ArchiCAD and a few of your listeners might have also heard of SolidWorks.
Yep, of course. A lot of the teachers actually love SolidWorks because it's easy to use and kids can pick it up really quickly as well. It's got an industrial design I think bias.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. And something I wanted to ask was how Rhino and Grasshopper also integrates with that. But I'll let you keep going.
Sure. No, that's cool. Happy to kind of answer any questions you have.
Yeah, awesome.
My knowledge of SolidWorks is somewhat limited because I think to really apply SolidWorks, you have to have a strong engineering background.
Yeah.
Where ArchiCAD is more of a design and documentation tool. But I'll do my best.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
to get into that. And as your introduction alluded to, we also bring to the market a number of other architectural, construction, and engineering softwares and provide solutions and expert advice around that, and also technical support because. We don't want to just dump software on people and run. We want to see people use software to the best of its ability and get something from it.
That's right.
And even for students, if they download the free version of ArchiCAD and they have questions, they can use our support portal and they'll get answers from people like me.
That's great.
I love talking to students because I just think that in their realm, they get to design things without constraints.
Definitely.
And they're actually pushing the boundaries of design.
Yep.
They're not constrained by a budget or a strict brief. And if they're cheeky enough, they'll even move the boundaries of their plot just to fit their design in. And I just love that about student designs. I love seeing their work. It doesn't matter what software it's produced in. I love getting down to the universities at the end of the semester and seeing what these guys are producing.
There you go. So how does Rhino and Grasshopper fit into that in the Archi world in your experience?
It's really interesting. So Rhino and Grasshopper are incredible pieces of software. Rhino is this free-form modeling tool and it's excellent for design and it has some really amazing features. And Grasshopper just adds into that by plugging directly into the geometry engine. And we can start to apply mathematics to generate geometry and patterns. And by being able to bring that type of power into a BIM tool, BIM documenting tool like ArchiCAD, we can combine the best of both worlds. Rhino and Grasshopper have this amazing existing user base and lots of online content. And I'm just so excited to see what our users start to create with this and bring into ArchiCAD just to enhance their buildings. Yeah,
definitely. My experience has only been doing some very basic level foundational fluid dynamics, and we use that to map out traffic flow and some heat analysis and things like that at a very foundational level. So I haven't had too much experience in that. What are some of the capabilities of Rhino and Grasshopper that you can see working with ArchiCAD, like fluid dynamics?
Yeah, so Grasshopper and ArchiCAD, McNeil and Graphisoft, they've come together and they've actually been able to build a direct link or bidirectional link into ArchiCAD. So using the workflows in Grasshopper, we can start to create our building in ArchiCAD
Yep.
from Grasshopper, so modeling slabs, walls, beams, columns, and roofs, etc., etc. We can also take geometry back out of ArchiCAD and reference it in Grasshopper, and then use programs like Ladybug to do environmental analysis on, say, for example, the amount of light that's hitting your facade.
Yeah.
And these are some really interesting things that weren't possible before, and we're starting to kind of break into the space where people can create better buildings, more environmental buildings, using these softwares that already have tremendous support on the internet.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this is why I have a very small student following that uses ArchiCAD in conjunction with Grasshopper and Rhino. And I feel like they're in the same pathway, similar pathway to yourself. They are the ones who love the software packages and just plays with it. And they do some incredible work, like you said, at uni without those constraints, and become experts in that by the time they even set foot into the industry.
It's addictive.
It is, isn't it? And I think this battle between Autodesk and Graphisoft is kind of dividing people, whether you become either a Revit expert or an ArchiCAD expert.
Too much, actually.
I actually believe that as well. And I think, to be honest, people should know both because it makes them more valuable as well. And this is what I always tell my students and the teachers in that secondary and tertiary level is that students need to learn both. Why have this product bias and create another, like you said before, with Apple and Android? It should be anything. And what's your opinion on it?
Look, I think you're completely right. The best architectural practices in the world will use both.
Yeah.
And it's not just we use ArchiCAD for these type of projects and Revit for these type of projects. It's about using the best tool for the job.
Yeah.
And depending on what the design brief is, what the clients want, and then what the users actually want as well.
How do you see the future of these BIM and CAD products evolving in the next 5 to 10, 20, 30 years' time? The reason I ask that question is because this is the content that my students, who are, whether they're in secondary or tertiary, will, by the time they enter the industry and embed themselves, they're the ones who are going to be using it and knee-deep in that. What's the future of Graphisoft, in your opinion?
Look, I think that's a really interesting question. I think we probably have to understand better what Graphisoft is all about.
Yep.
And that's actually a pretty simple answer. Each version of ArchiCAD is focused on delivering software which targets key criteria, so design, performance, intuitiveness, collaboration, and visualization. And ArchiCAD is such a unique software in that the product designers and product managers are all architects. So ArchiCAD is a software by architects for architects.
I love that.
It's something that always drew me back to ArchiCAD. And I think that gives us a real advantage. Just from the way that you work in ArchiCAD, even to the design of the icons in the interface, you just get a sense that a lot of thought has been put behind the software. It's that genus loci. Just it's the little touches. You think, oh, that's actually quite clever. I've never noticed that.
Yeah.
And even today, after like 10 years of using the software almost every day of my life, I'm still discovering little bits that just make me smile.
Yeah. There you go.
The standard workflow in ArchiCAD, as I alluded to earlier, just reflects this architectural process, and the tools are quite intuitive and flexible. This is bolstered by ArchiCAD's unique 3D workflows, so we can manipulate, visualize, and interact with a 3D model like no other software. If I wanted to move a wall, I just grab that wall and move it. I don't have to go back to any other view. If I want that wall to tilt or to grow or shrink, I just click one of the edges and do those things. And to me, in my brain, that makes sense. It's like we're going back to that stage in architecture where we were creating models with our hands. And I'd love to see things like that come back into software. I think we're losing touch with probably the foundations of architecture generally. And I'm a big proponent of just making stuff with your hands, using a pencil, figuring something out, and then start to play with it in 3D and come back to just sketching over the top.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny. BlueBeam have just released this link back to ArchiCAD, which enables this.
Oh wow! Okay.
So you can grab your ArchiCAD model, shoot it out to PDFs, open it in BlueBeam on a Microsoft Surface or anything with a stylus or even an iPad, and start sketching over the top of it.
Brilliant.
And then send this back to ArchiCAD, and the markups will appear as a list of things to fix in
That's
ArchiCAD.
great. That's so easy, because if you're on site, that makes life 1,000 times easier.
Yeah, and think of the printing saving as well.
Definitely.
Not only are we saving hundreds of dollars in printing, but there's an environmental factor to consider. You use less toners.
Yep.
I just discovered the other week that we have to keep our printer in the server room because the toners are cancerous or something like that.
Oh wow! All right, that's something I haven't heard before. There you go.
I don't know how true that is, but it scared me, that's for sure.
No doubt.
Think, just the just that ability to stay kind of using technology, but using it in a smarter way to get a better result.
Yeah.
Some of these points that I'm describing are just the draw cards for me that caused me to stick with ArchiCAD early in my career and kind of develop some skills. And when I joined CI, I started to actually realise that ArchiCAD is being used on some of the biggest projects in Australia and New Zealand. I know we're getting a little bit far away from the question here. Some of the landmarks in our cities, such as Eureka Tower, was done in ArchiCAD 6.
Oh, wow.
And we're also really excited to see the Queen's Wharf project by Coddy Parker up in Brisbane take shape. And I think that's one of the biggest projects in the world.
I actually spoke to the BIM manager for the Queen's Wharf project from Urbis a few episodes ago, actually.
Oh, wonderful.
He was using Revit.
Yep.
But I haven't spoken to anyone from Coddy Parker, but there you go. That's pretty incredible to know that.
Yeah. I mean, the size of that file is absolutely epic.
Yeah.
And ArchiCAD can host that in just one file. So we don't have to break it down. And can you think in other software, we have to kind of slice it and dice it to get it to work at a fast and responsive level for our users. In ArchiCAD, it's just one. And so that means less headaches for BIM managers and less headaches for users.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to hear what the BIM manager of that project says.
Yeah, he was an incredible source of knowledge as well. And I definitely recommend listening to that one.
So to come back to the question, I guess, where I see ArchiCAD going is that it's going to continue to improve. We're seeing developments in MEP's areas of ArchiCAD, in the structural areas of ArchiCAD. I think ArchiCAD's going to become a bigger player in these areas over time, no doubt. We're seeing more and more processes utilize multi-threading and hyper-threading than any other BIM software.
For the lay people, if I may pause you for a second, what does that mean?
Yeah, sure. It just means that ArchiCAD can use more of the hardware resources that you have available, making the program run faster. So, for example, ArchiCAD 16, we're up to 23 now, but 16 was the first version to become fully 64-bit, which means that we're starting to use all the cores in your computer. And what background processing did for us in ArchiCAD 19 was it started to remove the load off the CPUs that were producing the visual interface or perhaps updating the layouts, and move those processes to other cores so that ArchiCAD was more responsive, and then in the background it was doing all this heavy processing to keep all the other drawings up to date. Yeah. And we see this continuous workflow because of that. There's no pausing, there's no delays. Well, I can't say no. It happens.
It's technology. There always has those glitches in it, which is okay.
It's faster.
Yeah.
And arguably, ArchiCAD is the fastest BIM modeling software on the market because of these technological innovations.
Yeah.
And there's actually a few online resources where you can see just what is available for background processing in ArchiCAD, and you can have a look at this for other software as well.
There you go.
And see which processors use more cores than just one. And in today's computing language, I think that translates to more efficiency for our users, because we're seeing like 8 core MacBooks come out now, but each core only runs at 2.2 gigahertz with turbo boost up to 4 or something. So that means for the majority of the time, the software, which is only using 1 core, only runs at 2.2 gigahertz, which is kind of like the speeds we were getting back in 2000, as opposed to being able to divide the work up amongst all the cores like ArchiCAD can.
Increases the performance.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, something that I always want to touch base on and understand is there's a whole bunch of new technology elements that are coming into play in the design and the construction industry, such as VR and AR and artificial intelligence and so on as well. And this is also something that schools and universities are heavily investing in, and people are beginning to learn more and more about it. How does those technological elements such as VR come into play with ArchiCAD and the Graphisoft products?
We've also got this, just coming back to what coming up. So we've got a free team collaboration solution called BIM Cloud, which doesn't need server-grade hardware to run. Allowing small companies to boost productivity by having many people work on the same project simultaneously, without heavy investments in IT. And the solution is so easy to run. It can be set up in 30 minutes, and then you can work anywhere in the world, even through a mobile hotspot.
Oh, wow.
So they're just some of the things that already exist. I think in the future, just going back to the key areas of ArchiCAD, any tool that's created has to have a strong design ethos and a strong ability for users to take the geometry it creates it and manipulate it. In terms of performance, we're only going to get faster. In terms of collaboration, we're only going to get better. We already import more file types than most of the other softwares out there and export just as many. We want the software to be intuitive and user-friendly.
There's so many things that your product does. That's the beautiful part about it. And actually, this is something that when I talk to Autodesk software developers and the designers, even they actually don't know the full capability of the product. And I'm finding all these ridiculously complex technologies such as ArchiCAD and so on and BIM modeling. No one ever knows the full extent of it. It's always constantly evolving and growing and finding those little, like you said, the little Easter eggs and bits and pieces. So it's pretty incredible.
We're also starting to implement artificial intelligence into the software.
Okay. So how does the technology such as VR, AI and AR come into play with the Graphisoft products?
Sure. So there have been some eye-catching movements in the AEC market recently. As the industry becomes more competitive, I think that these are only going to ramp up, and it's actually a really exciting time to be in the industry, and especially a student, because you're at the forefront of what's just around the corner, and there are some exciting things coming.
Definitely.
And there's more design on us as there's more pressure on us as designers to be experts in all these softwares. And so we're finding that softwares that are inflexible or softwares that provide users with just rigid workflows are quickly being isolated and removed from practice. So hopefully, we're moving away from AutoCAD in that regard. And starting to make the transition, and even if it's just SketchUp, SketchUp is an amazing piece of software.
Definitely, I'm a biased and advocate of SketchUp.
I like what they're doing is really interesting, and I like the model of something that's this light and lots of plugins to build it up, to customize it into a package that you like to use.
Definitely.
And so a lot of our users use SketchUp and then bring that model into ArchiCAD. It's a drag and drop.
Oh, wow.
So it's really intuitive. In fact, in our trainings, we open up the SketchUp warehouse and just drag and drop an object from SketchUp warehouse into ArchiCAD.
There you go. Yeah. Is there a direct link to VR from ArchiCAD?
So we've seen Graphisoft implement artificial intelligence into its programming, and this was highlighted in 2017 when Graphisoft launched ArchiCAD 21 and the new stair tool. Stairs are one of those things, they're actually more complex than people understand. Around the world, there are just so many different building codes for stairs, and when you're trying to create a design tool that's focused about stairs, this project, we thought it was going to take a couple of years. It ended up taking 10 or 11 years to actually get out the door.
Wow.
And to get it out the door, Graphisoft had to implement artificial intelligence just so that the stair tool could respond to what the users were trying to make and then make the stair work. So I think we're going to see more of that type of programming come into the program. But so far I've only talked just about production. I think the other half of the equation is deliverables. And this is where your question about VR, AR, AI comes into play.
Yep.
In version 18, Graphisoft introduced a program called CineRender, which is a derivative of the Maxon Cinema 4D program, which enabled users to create photorealistic images. In version 23, we've got some really exciting news. TwinMotion has come on board, and any user with a version 23 license also gets access to the next generation TwinMotion engine.
Wow. So what does that actually mean from layman's point of view? Like TwinMotion allows people to do exactly?
Yeah, and this is a really interesting piece. So TwinMotion, you might have heard of the game Fortnite.
Yep, of course.
So Unreal Engine, Unreal bought TwinMotion recently, and they've decided to ramp up development.
Wow.
And they're turning TwinMotion into, or enhancing what it was. TwinMotion was already conceived as a way to visualize our projects quickly and get the work out in an intuitive workflow. You drag and drop materials onto surfaces, set the camera, and then create like a VR environment for people to walk through without having to get bogged down in little tabs and connect lines and things like that. It's, as you would expect a visualization software for architects to be. And the new generation of TwinMotion will introduce ray tracing features. So if you've got a NVIDIA graphics card, you'll be able to get a real-time rendering result. So traditional renders will render pixel by pixel by pixel. Real-time renderers render everything at once.
I see.
And you don't have to wait too long for the image to actually resolve. So you can walk clients through your project almost instantly with this software. And what your clients see is almost photorealistic. This is the next generation of what visualization is going to be.
Definitely.
And we can plug directly into VR headsets. I'm really looking forward to trying this out actually for the first time, and let's hope I don't get too motion sick.
Oh, definitely. And so is that from directly through ArchiCAD to VR, or is it inbuilt now with the new versions coming in?
So Graphisoft and Unreal teamed up to create a plugin that will allow us to push our model out to TwinMotion for this whole visualization thing to take place. But because we're interested in non-destructive workflows, any changes we make in the ArchiCAD model can be pushed to the TwinMotion model instantly. So we don't have to stop work, save, close TwinMotion, make the changes, bring the new model into TwinMotion, then put our trees and our people and our birds and our grass back into the model. It's just we're just moving the changes about. This is not a new concept. This is actually something that was created for our teamwork collaboration, where we're just pushing the changes around a network in a teamwork environment, so everyone can be working on the same project, and we're only just sharing little megabytes or kilobytes of data rather than the whole model. So everything's kind of light and fast. Yeah,
definitely, and being able to take those changes across really quickly just makes the entire design process super simple. All right, so one of the other things, and I usually like to end with this one as a takeaway for the listeners, and given that it's mainly in design and education, I want to always ask this from the expert: how should people such as students, educators, whether they're secondary or tertiary, or even professionals listening to this, because I know that I have a lot of design professionals such as architects and a few directors that are following this, and how do they embed these skills, especially with these next-gen technology coming on board, into their portfolio of skills?
Yeah. So for students, we offer heavily discounted courses just to get them on board with what BIM is. We're quite invested in teaching students about BIM because we think it's the biggest workflow change in design probably since the Renaissance.
Oh, wow.
We've gone from producing technical drawings on paper, then to the computer, and now we're simulating a building digitally before it's built. So we just want to open up students' eyes to the opportunities that creates. And for example, now there's a huge demand for BIM experts, BIM coordinators and BIM managers. And we've also started a student program at Central Innovation to bring students on board, train them up, and then as a part-time role while they're studying, and then release them back into the wild so that they can talk to other people about what ArchiCAD is and you just get the idea of Open BIM out there.
Brilliant.
For educators, we'll actually train teachers for free for exactly the same reasons. We just want to get the message out there that BIM is more than just software. It's a workflow process. We also offer lots of free online training courses that come with files and videos that teach you step by step everything you need to know to get started with ArchiCAD. And we'll come into universities and lecture, which is fantastic. And if you're a student or a teacher who is interested in Open BIM workflows, just get in touch with us. We've got a website, we've got phone numbers, we've got offices. Just walk in the door and start talking to us. We love talking to customers. We love talking about BIM. And we'd love to talk to anyone who's got a similar interest. And I'm just thrilled to be working with some universities this year and next year to integrate with them and provide some advice around the courses that they're developing around BIM. So hopefully I'll get to meet some of your listeners out there in the wild.
Yeah, definitely. And there you go, guys. Like, you've heard it here first, and make sure you jump onto the bottom of this podcast page. You'll be able to find the direct links to their websites and Michael's emails and things like that. So make sure you check that out. Mate, it's been a pleasure. You've gone through so much new information that even has blown my mind, and I think I walked in here with a little bit of a Revit bias, but I think I must say I should definitely check out ArchiCAD personally as well. And thank you so much for giving up your time. You've been a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you very much for having us.
Cheers, mate.